And we also give all of our registered community organizations the opportunity to introduce themselves and to share any engagement they have had with the project. And I will turn this over to Mrs. LaBelle with the Shenley Heights Collaborative.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Phyllis LaBelle. I serve as the president of the Shenley Heights Collaborative. We are an all-volunteer 501c3 organized in 2002. We work only within the Shenley Heights community. Our present focus is doing total gut rehabs to the vacant houses that you see standing in the community. We then sell them to persons at 80% of the AMI. It's a slow progress, but it's a very successful progress. I'll be brief, Jose. I'm finished. Thank you.
Sounds good. And I will pass this over to the Hill District Consensus Group.
Thank you, Jose. My name is Britt Collins. I am the RCO coordinator for the Hill District Consensus Group. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'll be very brief in going through our slides. Next slide. So the Hill District Consensus Group is a membership-based community organization. We have over 30 years in the Hill District. We really want to note that several Hill District community representatives and residents create our table to help protect residents from displacement, build solidarity, and to focus on development plans according to the Hill District cultural legacy and their perspective. Next slide. Just one moment. All right, so our mission is to create effective pathways for intergenerational residents to overcome economic, social, and housing disparities. Next slide. So for our process, we look to do, and we'll do a very high-level overview, a general concept review with the board and staff. This phase centers on defining the conceptual and schematic form of the project. We also have an expedited review for projects connected by Hill District residents or Hill-based organizations that align with master plan goals that are located in the Hill and directly benefiting Hill residents and organizations. Next slide. So this is an example of our process and our rubric that we would use when assessing a project. Next slide. And again, the phase 2 of our process is once it goes through that initial review, we then do a design community impact review, which would be a community public meeting. Next slide. And again, we invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also on our website at www.hdcg.org. And I just want to also note that we do work in conjunction and collaboration with the Hill District Collaborative with our review process. And again, thank you. And then Jose, go ahead.
Go ahead, Britt.
I was going to say, I know that Tanya typically would be reviewing this. She had prior engagement, was not able to join, so I was going to read through their slides unless there was someone else.
Sure.
I didn't see anyone else. Okay. So the Hill District Collaborative, next slide. And again, I work in conjunction with the Hill District Consensus Group. We also work with the Hill District Collaborative, and we have a joint process that we review projects under. So the Hill District Collaborative is a not-for-profit registered community organization representing historic Hill District. It was actually formed by concerned Hill District residents and business owners who want to ensure a clear community development review process with a high level of community engagement. They became a City of Pittsburgh registered community organization on March 9th of 2022. So the vision is to have the Hill District redeveloped into a safe and economically thriving community that maintains its historical culture. Our mission is to inform, engage, and connect Hill District residents, landowners, business owners, and nonprofits so that communities' interests and positions can influence decisions on real estate development, economic development, and public safety. And the purpose is to cultivate a collaborative forum that is inclusive and respects all community members. So again, these are some of our focus areas that we're looking at: mixed income housing, affordable home ownership, clean and economic energy projects, and also to facilitate community connection between African American business owners and real estate developers. Next slide. So we have the same review process as the Hill District Consensus Group, so I won't bore you with going through the same thing, but again, we have a joint collaborative effort in the review.
Thank you, Brett, and I will turn this over to Dylan Brown of the Hill CDC.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name's Dylan Brown. I work at the Hill CDC as the Policy and Planning Associate. Next slide, please. So the Hill CDC is a place-based organization focused on the equitable redevelopment of the historic Hill District. Our motto is where cultural legacy meets future innovation. We're celebrating over 38 years of operation and lots of success. So I'll try and be as quick as I can as well. So next slide, please. So our mission is to work in partnership with both residents and stakeholders to implement strategies and programs that connect people, plans, and policies to drive compelling development in the Greater Hill District. On the next slide, we break it down a little bit more. So like I mentioned, people, place, and policy are our main focus areas. If you could go to the next slide. Go into a little bit more detail there. So the real estate development team is focused on the place. We work all over the Hill District, but we have a particular focus on the Center Avenue Cultural Corridor. And we also do economic development programs that help new businesses become greater success. And we also have homeownership preparation for first-time homeowners. And we also have arts and culture programs through our Nafasi on Center Arts Center. And then we have policy and planning, which is where I mostly work. And that's on the promotion of equitable development and neighborhood planning, like the Greater Hill District Master Plan. Next slide, please. So the Development Review Panel is the Hill District's community review process. It's a collection of community-based organizations that each appoint a resident of the Hill District to a panel, an independent panel that will review a project submission. It's a two-step process. The first is a focused review by the panel of residents, and then the second part is a community score where any resident of the Hill District is welcome to come to our meeting, hear from the developers, and then vote on that project. And those two scores combined make the DRP score, which determines which projects get a letter of support from the Hill CDC. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of history here on the DRP. It's almost a decade old. It's been a very successful project because it started out as a partnership between the Hill CDC and the Hill District Consensus Group. And we worked with the Consensus Group to create a structure that centers the voices and desires of Hill District residents. Hill CDC staff has no input whatsoever on the DRP process. We merely staff it. We organize the monthly meetings and make sure that every panelist is briefed on the materials that they're going to receive. So really, it's a really successful process because it is the voice of residents centered from start to finish. Next slide, please. And so to date, the DRP has reviewed over 50 projects. You can see the organizations that are a part of the DRP below. We're really excited about all of the projects that have been submitting to the DRP this past year. And like I said, next slide, please. You can review the projects that we've reviewed already, that we're currently reviewing, or projects that did not pass the DRP process. That is at our website, which is hilldistrict.org/DRP. Next slide. And I think I already mentioned this, so we can skip this slide, but it's important that it's not just a one-step process. We do include residents at the beginning and the end of this process. Thank you. Next slide. And so finally, the letter of support is, we set the bar very high at the Hill CDC, but not too high. It's not that developers can't reach it. The 80% is the threshold that a developer needs to reach to receive a letter of support from the Hill CDC. And that score is developed, like I said earlier, a combination of the panel score, which is a really detailed rubric based on the Greater Hill District Master Plan principles, and then the community review meetings ballots, which are a much simpler voting process. And so if a cumulative score is less than 80%, that doesn't mean the project, is over. It's just meant that there needs to be more collaboration with either Hill District based organizations or collaboration amongst the development team to meet the goals of the Greater Hill District Master Plan. And like I said, the process never ends. It only ends when the developer decides. And so if they choose to abandon the process or disengage from it, then a letter of support is a letter of non-support, I should be clear, is drafted. And I think the next slide is the last slide. So yes, today's applicant regarding the Robert Williams Park upgrades, they have not submitted to the DRP process. We encourage today's applicant, as we have last month, to submit to the DRP. And just because of the formalities, we cannot endorse projects that have not completed the Hill District's development review process. It's part of our RCO ordinance application. We had to create a democratic and orderly process to establish community review of projects. And like I said earlier, all of the successful projects can be reviewed at hilldistrict.org/DRP. On the last slide, we have all of our different social medias that you can engage with us on. We always encourage people to go to hilldistrict.org/sign-up to sign up for our development review, or not our development review, our weekend roundup, sorry. The weekend roundup is a really great resource for people who live in the Hill District or care about the Hill District. We cover different things related to development and policy, as well as different programs that are going on in the neighborhood. Like last week, we had our food bank on Friday. We always send out early reminders of that through the weekend roundup, but you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and as well as LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Ose, and I look forward to the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Dylan. And we're going to go right into our project presentation. So I will turn this over to Jan.
Joining us tonight for the development activities meeting for Robert E. Williams Shelter and Playground. If you go to the next slide, I'll jump into our agenda for the evening. I'll do a couple of introductions. We'll talk a little bit about why we're here. I think Osei already talked about these, but the norms for the meeting. We've got some of our own internal norms so that we're getting the best project feedback we can. And then we'll be diving into the development activities meeting updates. So things like the project status, project timeline, some of our next steps. We'll talk about the zoning board of adjustment variances that the project is looking to get. We'll talk about the public art and civic design commission approvals that are necessary as well. And then this isn't part of the formal development activities meeting process, but a couple of years ago, a name change had been floated, and we just want to reconfirm some of that information with the community at this meeting. So if we go into the next slide, I already introduced myself, I think, but I'm the infrastructure engagement specialist in the mayor's office. I work closely with our Department of Public Works, our Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, doing community outreach and engagement. I'm joined online by Paul Scott. He's the engagement manager in our office. He's also the neighborhood engagement coordinator for all of our Hill District neighborhoods. Also joined by Kaz Pellegrini, senior project architect at the Department of Public Works. He'll be here to hopefully help answer any questions. I'm not sure if Naomi's on, but we do have somebody from R3A Architecture on as well. And then Council President Lavelle here to talk a little bit potentially about the name change that's could be proposed. Moving into the next slide, just want to talk about our purpose and objectives for this meeting. So first and foremost, fulfill the development activities meeting requirements. We're required to have these meetings just like any developer would before going to a board and commission, Again, those boards and commissions are Public Art and Civic Design Commission and the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We also want residents to leave with clarity about project status and next steps. It's been about a year since we've been in front of community about this project. And then again, confirm the name change that had previously been discussed. So for our norms at the city of Pittsburgh, we really want to emphasize, sorry, Jose, you can go to the next slide. We really want to emphasize your physical and psychological safety. Hope you're in a safe spot attending this meeting, not driving a car or operating machinery. Want you to be here to listen, to learn about the project. We understand folks might not agree with everything they see, but ask that if you have disagreements, you do so respectfully. Be open to the new ideas, appreciate differences of opinion. I think really most importantly, be present. We want you to be receptive to the information in this presentation so that you're able to share your concerns and feedback with us. Next slide. So I think this really is where we get into, kind of the meat of the project and the presentation. So for the Robert E. Williams shelter and site development, the funding is finalized and approved. There were some hurdles with the Department of Environmental Protection, but those hurdles have been cleared. And, due to the ongoing delays, we're back in front of you at this development activities meeting because the previous one expired. So then really why we're here, the things that we're waiting on to get started are the final permits, which are pending Zoning Board of Adjustment approval. Next slide. So I'm sure folks are pretty aware of the project timeline here. There's been a pretty lengthy community engagement process that, I'd say we're complete. This is obviously the closing step of that. But meetings starting in summer of 2018 through the winter of 2023. That included 8 community meetings, 2 development activities meetings. The architects and Department of Public Works also completed final site design starting in winter 2022 through present. And then we're hoping to go into construction this fall, wrapping up by the end of next year. Going into the next slide. So our next steps to get to fall construction, like we said, the zoning and development application approval is pending. The demolition permit is pending. Stormwater permit is pending. Building permit is pending. This will also go to the preliminary public art and civic design review on July 24th. There'll be a zoning board of adjustment hearing on August 15th. And then a final public art and civic design commission review on August 28th. And again, based on approvals on those, hoping to begin demolition and construction fall of 2024, reopening the building late next year. On to the next slide. So I really want to emphasize that nothing about the design has changed since the most recent community meeting. We are simply here to, reshare the design, but also because the design requires 2 variances. The first is a parking variance. The parking code would typically require 7 parking spaces at this rebuilt facility. There's currently 0. So the proposal is really just to add the minimum or a smaller number of 3 parking spots. The other one is, if you go back one more slide, sorry, constructing a retaining wall higher than 10 feet. Hopefully you all have seen this in the renderings. We'll show them again, but this is really necessary to construct a full-size basketball court because of some of the topography. This allows, there to be the space for that full-size basketball court on the site. If you go to the next slide, this just talks about the Public Art and Civic Design Commission. They have to approve the design or modification of structures, design sites in the public realm. Obviously, a playground and community space fit the bill for that. Because the design hasn't changed too much. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. If you go to the next slide, Ose, we've got the interior layout with a large assembly space, restrooms, storage, kitchenette, mechanical. In the next slide, you can see some of the renderings. As I was preparing for this presentation, went back and looked at previous presentations, and again, just reconfirming that these should all be very familiar because the design hasn't changed. Moving on, the other aspects is the landscape design element. Here, I think you can see the, on the right-hand side, the three-dimensional image shows the 10-foot plus retaining wall, which really allows the site to have the topography necessary to include that basketball court. On the left side, you can kind of see the bird's eye view of the new parking spaces. Again, I think there's some site challenges with how much space can be allocated for parking, which is why the project is looking for a variance down from the minimum of 7 to 3 spaces. But again, there's currently 0 on-site parking spots, so we really see this as an addition for the facility. Then the last part really falls outside of the development activities portion, but if you go to the next slide, we had heard at a community meeting in the fall of 2021 that folks were interested in changing the name of the shelter to Schenley Heights Pavilion. Again, the park would remain Robert E. Williams Park, and so it would be something like Schenley Heights Pavilion at Robert E. Williams Park. Council President Lavelle is, I think, considering legislation for that name change. But before doing that, again, just want to reconfirm with the community. We know it's been a while since we've been in front of you talking about this project, talking about the name change. So yeah, if folks have thoughts on that as well, we'd be happy to hear them. And then moving on to the last slide, I think, that's pretty much all we have. We'll take some questions. Kaz can hopefully help answer some of the more technical ones, but thank you all.
Okay, so we do have a question in the Q&A tool or a comment and question. So 2 years ago, we who attended the meeting were told that the proper zoning permits needed to be in place. Why are we still waiting on those permits?
Sorry, yeah. Kaz, do you want to jump in on this question? I know you know more the project history.
Sorry, I can't see. I need to get my glasses.
Kaz, it seems like you're muted, or I can't hear you anyway. While Kaz gets that resolved, I'm going to try and answer based on the information I know, which is that we had this development activities meeting a couple years ago to be able to go and get those zoning permits. There were a number of outside permits that popped up. That's what I was mentioning about the Department of Environmental Protection, some tap-in permits with PWSA that needed to be resolved. Because of the amount of time that it took to resolve those issues, the previous development activities meeting expired, and now we need to go back in front of the zoning board of approval to get those permits again.
Okay, another question. What will be done to limit noise at the construction site? And how will construction vehicles be staged during construction to limit disturbances to neighbors to the park and structure?
Kaz is really our construction information. He'll have most of that. So hopefully we can get.
I can chime in
Okay,
on this
Naomi,
one.
you're on. Yeah, thanks, Naomi.
So the construction vehicles, there will be a little bit of maneuvering to get them on and off the site that might impact parking immediately adjacent to the existing driveway, but that's only when they're coming and going. Everything will be staged on the site. The site will be fenced off, and so the limit of construction will be fenced, and all the construction vehicles and equipment and storage will be on that site. Construction is going to be during normal hours. There shouldn't be anything, overnight or on the weekends.
Thanks, Naomi. And do you want to just briefly introduce yourself? I don't know that I gave you full credit during the initial introduction.
Sure. Hello, I'm Naomi Williams. I'm an architect. I'm the project manager at R3 for this project. And we've been working on this project for probably about 4.5 years. So we're pretty excited that we're on the tail end of getting this started for construction.
Thanks, Naomi. I'm reading here in the Q&A. Are you saying that the funding for the project is in place for the entire project? I believe the answer to that is yes. There's, I think, $2 million allocated for this project.
And yes, it
And
includes
Naomi
the
or
playground.
Kaz, yeah. Thanks, Naomi.
It's for the building, the site, and the playground.
All right, there's a third question here. Does the funding include, okay, you answered. It includes the playground. All right, additional question, is there additional noise abatement being considered? I work from home and noise from daytime construction could be very disruptive and impact my employment.
Not at this time.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that. I think it's one of the challenges that we face across the city, obviously, to make improvements, to upgrade our infrastructure. Things like construction have to take place. We understand they can be frustrating, loud occasionally, but it's part of what making improvements in a city like ours looks like. So.
Additionally, will there be a process for complaints or issues arising from construction? And I think Jan probably can take this one.
Yeah, so my role really is all kinds of outreach and engagement for infrastructure projects for Department of Public Works, Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. I don't know that my contact information is on the slide, but I'll make sure that folks can get it. But it's Jan, JAN.Rather, RAETHER, @pittsburghpa.gov. And I can make sure any complaints or issues get flagged to the project team.
And I'll also put his email in the chat. And Melissa said, understood, but there can also be measures put in place to limit impact. And your comment is noted. And I believe Carol had her hand up. Is Carol still here?
Yes, I think I heard my question. I think my question was answered, but I'll ask it again. Does the rebuild include the playground?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything you've seen, everything you saw in the plans, the renderings are part of the scope of work.
Do you have any pictures of what the playground will look? Because I know we didn't go into a lot of details about the playground, but I know people with like of course, swing and the typical things in the spray park or spray showers? Will that be
So,
included?
so there's no water feature at this. Separate from the design of the building, there was different community engagement that the city held with the neighborhood. And my understanding is that it's pretty standard for the city to get feedback from the local children on the play equipment that's being installed.
Yeah, I think that's what was supposed to happen, and they told us that, you know, they would get to the playground part because of course it started around the actual shelter and of course, you know, the basketball court, and then of course it wouldn't make sense not to put a playground. So, Councilman LaBelle, is this open for more discussion around the playground or?
Not at this point, no. The final design has been submitted. To your recollection, we did actually engage with youth in the community, where we, excuse me, actually provided them with, I apologize. We actually provided them with various scenarios and various types of playground and various types of equipment. And then they actually spent time picking out what they thought would be best for the playground.
So when did that happen?
I would say 2021, maybe 2022 at the absolute latest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just was wondering because, you know, we were told that we would have an opportunity to work all together on the playground and also the art for the building. I know people wanted to, you know, you know, submit their memories and so
There
on and
was,
so on.
just as I think it through, there was also a community meeting where we laid out also the various types of playground equipment and members on various easels throughout the building, and members of the community also went through and chose what they thought. They put, I think, stickers, pink, yellow, I forget, the green stickers on what they thought was sort of first, second, and third. And then after that, because at that meeting, it was mentioned that the kids should really be able to chime in, that we then worked to have the kids actually then do a deeper dive into what they thought was most appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Council President.
For this parking question, the parking spaces that we are lacking, which is 4, there's enough room on the one side of Adelaide that's on the park side, not in front of residential houses, with enough room for 30 cars and a standard parallel parking. So we're expecting the folks coming to the playground that are not parking on the site, because the site parking is only for ADA parking, that they park adjacent to the playground, not in front of people's homes. And every time we've been on site, it appears that there is plenty of spaces available on Adelaide, adjacent to the playground and park. That's for the question that's up right now.
Thanks, Naomi.
Okay, so we have a couple hands raised, so I'm going to pass it over to the Shenley Heights CDP.
Hello, this is Alicia George. I'm the Executive Director of Shenley Heights Community Development Program. I'm actually at the park now with children. And I would say this, when these plans originally came about and we were being asked throughout the city, we weren't putting as many sprinkler parks. And I would ask that that be reconsidered as we move forward 2025. We are near water. We got a reservoir here. So if there's any way we can do sprinklers like some of the other newer parks that are getting them, even if it's just a spray, our children really are asking for that. Next thing, this is more of a community input and the architect question. I recall when we were speaking about the design indoors, there was going to be a partition. We talked about having a partition so that multiple or
Yes,
various
it-
events could take place. And I did not see that on the drawing. Was that taken out?
No, it's part of the project. We were just showing the plan
Oh,
that
it is
showed it
there?
as
Okay,
one
I
large.
just didn't
Yes.
see it. I wanted to clarify that.
Yes, there's a pocket that it folds into. So that is still part of the project. It has not been removed.
All righty, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, additionally, Michelle H.
I think you answered my question. Alicia asked part of it. The other part was about my main part was about the handicapped, and then the other part was about the partition, because I didn't see it in there either. So I don't really have a question anymore.
Yeah, for the partition, I think I could share my screen, or say you could share your screen, but otherwise on the Engage page, the Robert E. Williams Engage page, all these slides are up. They show the slides that we showed, and it looks like there's a little cubby in the assembly space, which might be the partition. Is that right, Naomi? Is that what we're looking at there?
Yes. It folds away.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we do have additional Q&A. Because the park is within the neighborhood, is there any consideration for an on-site parking lot? So as to not inconvenience the residents, I believe there was information shared about this. So Naomi or Jan, if you wanna provide the information you shared on a few slides.
So yeah, the
Yeah,
parking that we're
go ahead,
providing
Naomi.
is, yeah, sorry. The parking we're providing is ADA accessible parking adjacent to the building and to the playground. The site is not really conducive to adding a large parking lot, as well as the more parking we add to the site, that's less park. So the City Parks Commission, I believe is the proper name of the department, is actually trying to discourage adding parking to park sites, playgrounds and grassy areas. So that's why we're adding the number that we are, rather than more. Topography would make that challenging anyway. And, you know, I can't really say more about how that impacts the neighborhood. That's just how it fits and what we're able to do.
Thank you. So additionally, Melissa has said people tend to park on Adelaide and Milwaukee, and people do park in front of residents' homes. So this is a comment. That will be recorded for the boards and commissions. Thank you, Melissa. Also, would the city consider parking restrictions for visitors to park? So, okay,
oh.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, part of my role working with DOMI, I can certainly follow up with them outside of the context of this to see what their thoughts are on this. Parks are tricky. We want them to be places that lots of people visit, but obviously, folks also like living next to parks. So there's challenges with that. I think there's a couple of places where DOMI has tried to figure out exactly how that works with residential parking permits or other kinds of restrictions. But obviously that's a decision that gets made outside of the park design process. But I'm happy to follow up with folks in Domi about that.
And Melissa says, thank you. And Carol has her hand raised. Carol?
Sure. I'm sorry, I missed some of the presentation. Are we still looking forward to having a rooftop on the actual shelter? I don't see it. Because I think that's the basketball court that I'm looking at.
The basketball, do you see the umbrellas in that gray?
Okay, I
Yeah,
see it. Yes.
that's the roof of the pavilion. So we're adding a shade structure, which is
Great.
that little roof thing on the right. That's where we're gonna have connections for audio, visual, and power. So if there's a DJ or some other kind of thing, they'll be able to plug in under the shade, and then we're providing some tables with umbrellas to provide some shade on the roof. We do have limitations for how much shade we can add to the roof for structural reasons. So we can't really add more weight to the building, to the roof than what we're showing right now. Those pavers are actually quite heavy.
Okay, that's perfect. That's music to my ears. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know this is really an opportunity for folks to ask us questions, but do want to kind of re-up the discussion about renaming this Shenley Heights Pavilion. Council President Lavelle, I don't know if you have anything to add on that front, but would be interested in hearing from folks in the community about that.
I can just sort of remind everyone of how it came to be. So there was a meeting in July of 2021 where the city actually suggested naming the building the Overlook at Robert E. Williams Park. And many in the community felt, after very long discussion, felt that was a bad name because they thought it would attract people from outside the community to come. And the next name that was suggested was Robert E. Williams Community Center. And there was general consensus on that name. However, the city then correctly reminded us that the building is actually not a community center, given the way structures are classified by the city. And so after further discussion, one of the residents suggested the Shenley Heights Pavilion, and there was a vote that was taken and all present voted to approve that particular name. And that was back in July of 2021. And now I'm able to correctly pull down permits and things of that nature. We need to have that name be on the record, which is why I've drafted legislation for that to be formally adopted.
Thanks, Council President.
All right, there don't seem to be any additional questions or raised hands. Going once, going twice. All right, so I will.
No question. No question. I just want to thank everyone for their patience. This has been a long time coming to get to where we are to correctly be able to now pull the permits to begin the construction on this. And I just want to thank all those who've attended maybe 10 meetings now, on, if not more, on this for their patience. So just thank you all to the community, as well as thank you for your insistence that this get done.
Real quick, I also saw Melissa's question in the Q&A. Melissa, we've been trying to stay on top of our engaged PGH pages a little bit better. So I'll work with Kaz, the project team, and my colleague Laura Tsutsui, who's not here, but who really runs the engaged PGH pages. Once permits are finalized and we actually have a timeline, final timeline instead of like a target timeline, we'll make sure that gets added to the Engage PGH page as well. So yeah.
And let me just add something. So the thing that's going to take the longest to get us through is as long as we get approval from the community organizations today, so we can get that letter to get in front of the proper organizations at the city in August. That's what's going to take the longest to get our permits and start the construction. So, and again, there's nothing new with the design that we changed. It just took really long. So we're trying to finish this as quickly as possible for everyone.
Understood. So I did just want to provide the question from Melissa, which was, how will we be notified of the final timeline? The website hasn't always been updated promptly. And thank you for providing that information. There was an additional question from Carmen that came in. Will the city still rent the building through the end of 2024?
It'll be rentable through, I believe, the end of August, because in September we need to demolish it so that we can start the new construction.
So
And-
I'll say you need support letters from the RCO groups.
If you are willing to provide them support letters, you would send them to the Zoning Board of Adjustment and the Public Art and Civic Design
Could
Commission.
you email me all of that? Thank
Sure.
you.
And my follow-up email to the registered community organizations, I can put that information.
Thank you.
No problem. And so I just have a couple additional slides and I will close out the meeting.
Thank you,
So
that worked.
next steps. So of course, there is at least a 30-day period, and they provided the dates for these meetings, which for the Zoning Board of Adjustment is August 15th, and for the Public Art and Civic Design Commission is August the 28th. So the report will be completed, that Austin and myself are currently completing in the background. That will be provided to both the Zoning Board of Adjustment and the Public Art and Civic Design Commission, and to your registered community organizations. It will also be uploaded to the Development Activities meeting, to the Development Activities website that is available here. And as always, this presentation will be provided to your registered community organizations. And again, the Development Activities report is neutral. It is exactly the questions you ask, along with the answers that are provided, makes no conclusions. If you have strong feelings about the project, you should still consider attending the board or commission meeting and testifying. Your department contacts for the Department of City Planning are myself as your planning manager and neighborhood planner. My information is here, as well as Sharonda Watley, our Assistant Director of Strategic Planning. And again, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or X, and Instagram. Thank you for your time this evening, and this meeting is concluded. You have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Council
evening.
President Lavelle.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We're getting our rack, y'all.
I got one more question though.
Carol,
What's
I
your
had dibs
question?
on that rooftop. Quit
Oh,
playing.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be up there every day with my laptop. Wi-Fi.
never
Bye,
mind.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.